Red Dice Diaries podcast, a rambling journey through the wonderful world of RPGs by a long-time GM and player. The music at the start of this podcast is Shinigami by Tarek, used under Creative Commons license. We're going to start this episode by looking at some voicemail messages that people have left me. So, without further ado, take it away.
Hey John, Jason with Random Screed and apparently Kalmata Live here coming at you. So yeah, it was a good game. There was some weird stuff going on. I found it entertaining, you know, what Lorik decided to do, the way the carousing rolls went down, and I noticed you didn't mention Narder's situation, so that's pretty funny. That the Spaniard even survived surprises me. But that's the way it's been going. People aren't as competent as they'd like to be, it seems like, but they're not as incompetent enough for Darwinism to take over. So either way, it was enjoyable to listen to you talk about the game, and thank you for the praise. And I'll be looking forward to hearing further episodes and, you know, GMing for you and Lorik Smelt River. Thanks, buddy. Later.
That's Jason Hobbs there. Thanks very much for leaving me a voicemail, Jason. Yeah, I think the praise was well deserved. I thoroughly enjoyed the last Kalmata game I was in, and looking forward to getting back into the jungles with Lorik Smelt River soon. Yeah, you're right. I didn't mention Narda's particular situation. I wanted to leave that as a little bit of a surprise for anyone who was going to watch the video. And if you've not watched the video, anyone who's listening, I suggest you go over to Jason Hobbs' channel and have a look at it. What happened with Narda, I won't spoil it, but it was very entertaining, added a lot to what was a great session. So thanks very much again, Jason. Looking forward to the next session.
Hi John, Colin, Spike Pit. Yeah, setting up a game, running a game, getting the players' input, it's all well and good, but you just don't want to get stuck with something you don't want to run, man. So proceed with caution, sourcing the table on that front, I reckon. And I think you got it right. As long as you're explaining and making clear what it is you're trying to do, why should the players want to change it? And really, to be fair, if you come to a game with the intention of, well, essentially messing it up, that's bad form. So yeah. Also, episode 51, really enjoyed your retelling of our adventures on Kalmata, and yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying it, mate. And I liked your whole idea to do the cleric thing, even though it went, well, the way we knew it would go, and you ended up in the boozer. Nice one. Catch you later.
That was Colin there, a fellow OSR anchorite from the Spike Pit. Thanks very much for leaving me the voicemail, Colin. Yeah, I think the thing about roleplay games is there's a lot of room for give and take and negotiation between the GM and the player. And in fact, that's going to be part of the subject of the mainstay of this episode. But I also think there has to be a time when the GM sort of like stamps their authority on a game, as long as they're making it clear to their players what sort of game they're going to get. And there's some games where the setting is decided collaboratively, and some games where the GM says, I'm running this game, you know what you're going to get when you turn up, and that's what you expect to play. And I think players either have to buy into that if that's the sort of game that's being run, or move on or try and find something that they can enjoy in the game. It's a bit of a difficult subject because there's so many different variables, but hopefully I've given some insight in the previous episode. Thoroughly enjoying Kalmata, as I've just said in my response to Jason's message. Great to be hanging out with the rest of you guys in like the international Kalmata group, as it seems to have become known. Looking forward to ranging out with Spike the Delver again in the future. So thanks very much, Colin, and hopefully speak to you soon. Okay, so the mainstay of this episode is going to be a conversation between myself and Johannes Paavola. Johannes is running a Stars Without Number game that I'm lucky enough to be playing in at the moment. And in Stars Without Number, you pick foci, sort of like special abilities at certain levels as you go up in this OSR game. And I'm looking at potentially with my character, Catherine, who is like the mechanic / pilot, taking the unique ability sort of foci, which you have to discuss with the GM as to what it actually entails. And I talk an awful lot about this sort of GM and player discussion, but it's rare for me to be on the player side of that since I GM so much, and I thought it'd be interesting for people to actually get to hear that. So without further ado, let's start with a little bit of conversation that we had about the adventure behind the walls that I've been working on with Glyn Seal, and that Johannes and my regular group play tested through. And we're just chatting a bit about that at the start before moving on to talking about Stars Without Number. To be honest, the sort of like the mold creatures, like the Mulaks that were in the game, I pretty much just took like the Shambling Mound stats and tweaked them a bit for like the big creatures. And then, because there's an option to like introduce like smaller versions of them, so like lesser ones, I just sort of pared the stats down a little bit for like the lesser ones. So they're all just like adapted stats, but it's like I tried to do something more interesting than just be like, oh, it's a low level adventure. Here come the skeletons.
Yeah. Next up, rats.
That's it, exactly. Well, it's getting a bit. I mean, I've already got like, as you guys saw, I've already got a bit of like the mud cows in it, where it's like, oh, we're fighting some like animated cows. I was like, oh, I can't just have like the payoff after you've done like the stereotypical like encounter where you fight some animals because you're low level. I was like, I can't just have the main baddie be like, oh, he's a skeleton. So I was like, oh, it's a bit anticlimactic, isn't it? And plus, it can be sorted out by like one well-placed cleric being like, "Roar!"
Yeah.
that's that encounter done.
Yep. To be fair, I thought the fact that there was like mushroom cows there, I think that was pretty cool, because you usually get, because of the unspoken premise of pretty much all of these games is like you are the good guys and you are fighting evil guys and or aggressive elements of nature, which when they resist your attempts as a being of culture to dominate them, they're also evil.
Yeah.
so it's
pretty much.
So is wolves, is fucking badgers, all the mean shit, and fucking the most domesticated animal in history, cows. It's a bit off the beaten path, and I thought that was.
Oh, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Alex, I'm looking forward to the next session. Although my only thing at the minute is I'm thinking about, because obviously Dennis has done this thing where like, he effectively wants to like arrest/threaten like the criminal guy, and I'm trying to think of. I can see. I'm fine with that. I can see a couple of potential issues with it, because obviously like the criminal's not going to react well to like being threatened, obviously, because he's like a criminal. But by the same token, it's like if I have him just sort of like beat you guys up effectively and be like, that's what you get, son, then are you guys still going to be like, oh yeah, now we're going to go and do this mission for him? So like, is all the planning I've done for that mission that you chose going to be like shoved to one side? Or I can have him arrested, in which case, again, are you still going to go on the mission for him? Because I know you guys have like chosen the mission, but Dennis's sort of like plan could like skew that a little bit. So, but luckily I've got plenty of time to think about it. So,
yeah, I think, to be honest, if he shows up with his boys, and there's twice the number of us, I think it's gonna be like a no problem. He's gonna like show up with the thing like, hey, I found this. I'd really appreciate it if you took this down, and then we can talk business.
Yeah, I was thinking of him having turned up, like pretty much as you say, with that, and said, I'd appreciate that if you took this down. He's like, oh, if you take it down, I won't have to, like, when the church arrests me, I won't have to reveal that, like, one of your, like, your church guys is, like, in massive debt to me because he was, like, gambling with me. So,
and, like, by association, because this is in fucking stupid AD.
Yeah.
Like, I am also a demon worshipper because I know this guy.
Yeah. So I'm pretty much going to have him go like, oh, well, we can stand here and like threaten each other and like no one gets what they want. Or I can give you a bit of extra information. You guys can go and do this mission for me. We'll all get what we want. Happy days. There's no need for any... Because I'm going to have him like do the whole thing like, you know, like, oh, I'm a businessman. I'm not interested in like making trouble or like having beef with the church. All I know is like, your guy owes me some money. I need this doing. You guys go and do it for me. We all make a bit of profit. Everyone's happy. And once I know that you're like good for it, I might be able to put a little bit of other like work your way on the side, like, you know, to like get you a few extra like shillings. And And then hopefully my idea is like, if you guys are successful, like I can have the occasional mission like pop up from him, where we'd be like, oh yeah, there's this other creature that like needs harvesting. So like you guys will always have the option, like every now and again, to just be like, oh, would you want to go and hunt a monster?
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be for more reason than just like, there is a monster menacing the village. Go get it.
My God.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not again.
Okay, so Stars Without Number then. I'm just going to have a look at the...
Oh, hey, look.
Oh, hey. I'm just going to have a look at the focus thing where it's like unique focus or unique gift. There we go. Page.
Oh, here we go. Focus. So page 23.
Yeah.
Should we read the thing out for the...
Yeah, sure. Do you want me or do you want to do it?
I mean, go ahead if you have it there.
So, foci are sort of like areas of like speciality that you pick at certain levels during Stars Without Number. I suppose they're a bit like feats, but they're more sort of tied into like the background, and they give you like a few like little bonuses here and there. Like I've got a piloting based one, which is allowing us to like move around ridiculously quickly in our spaceship because I've taken it at a couple of different levels. The one we're looking at now, potentially, if we can work out like a good way of getting it into the game, is the unique gift, and the description of that in the Stars Without Number book is: whether due to exotic technological augmentation, a unique transhuman background, or a remarkable human talent, you have the ability to do something that is simply impossible for a normal human. This is a special focus which serves as a catch-all for some novel power or background perk that doesn't have a convenient fit in the existing rules. A transhuman who can function normally in lethal environments, a nanotech-laden experimental subject with a head full of exotic sensors, or a brilliant gravitic scientist who can fly thanks to their personal tech might all take this focus to cover their special abilities. It's up to the GM to decide what's reasonable and fair to be covered under this gift. If an ability is particularly powerful, it might require the user to take system strain to use it, as described on page 32 of the rulebook. As a general rule, this ability should be better than a piece of gear the PC could buy for credits. The player is spending a very limited resource when they make this focus pick, so what they get should be good enough that they can't just duplicate it with a fat bank account.
Yep.
And the idea that I sort of like mentioned half jokingly to Johannes at the end of the last session was I quite like the idea because we've not really gone into the sort of like AI sort of droid bit of the setting. We've got Matthew Bryan's character Tau, who is a mechanical life form, but I've felt that he's been sort of like a bit sidelined because he's sort of playing like the medical character, and he's a really cool character, but quite often as the doctor, he's just sort of like, oh well, you stay on the ship while we do the cool stuff, and then like if anyone gets injured, we'll like come crying to you and be like, oh, Matthew's character sort me out. So I thought it'd be quite a cool idea to sort of use my unique gift to like link my character into that whole sort of like mechanical side, so I can then like use it to hopefully like give Matthew's character a bit more of the spotlight and sort of bring him a bit more into the game, because I do think it's like a really cool character who is a little bit sidelined at the minute due to no fault of his own. It's just like how it's worked in the game, because we're like, right, we're going on a mission, right, okay, we've got my character, right, we need the pilot, great, we need the captain who's got all the social shiz going on, great, we've got Dave's character Diego, or the Jackal as he's known in the pit fighting circuits, who's like a muscle and like a sort of a gunsmith and stuff like that.
He's the gun-toting badass.
That's it. And we all tend to get because we're going on like these high action adventures, like doing a heist that we did last time, like hijacking this hover train full of Lametria, this like rare, or all of the action sort of types tend to come forward. It's like, yeah, my character tends to be like, right, I'm going to stay on the ship and just sort of like fly the ship. But because we're like on comms with each other, I tend to be like quite involved with that, because I'm like coming up with the plans and like getting the ship and like firing the weapons on the ship. Whereas the Doctor, unfortunately, tends to be like stuck in the med bay waiting for someone to get injured. And I've been sort of trying to bring him into it a bit, but it's difficult when obviously his main talent is to like help injured people. And thanks to like the blessing of the OSR gods, we have largely, and good dice rolls, we've largely avoided being horrendously injured so far.
Yeah, which is a big thing for how that character gets like less action that you guys do, because you just roll ridiculously well for 5 sessions going now.
Well, that's it. And if damage does tend to be taken, it tends to be like damage on the ship, which obviously in like the downtime, we then just like roll into whatever sort of spaceport we're in, pay the creds over to get the ship repaired, and we're on our way again for the start of the next session, and his character doesn't really get involved in that. So what I was suggesting to you, Johannes, is that, and we were sort of chatting this around a bit, is that perhaps our ship will be like, I suppose, like a node for like an actual AI. So obviously the ship can't contain like a full AI, but it might sort of be like almost like a remote access point for like this AI. And obviously like riffing on the whole like Battlestar Galactica sort of series, which I'm a massive fan of, I was thinking of taking the unique gift to say that my character is actually, although she's unaware of it, an artificial life form herself, and she's effectively like part of the ship, or she's like a sort of an interface for this like AI that's on the ship, which I think would be a cool justification for like all the like amazing shit my character's been pulling off with like the piloting, and also it adds an extra bit of explanation as to why my character's like, I know, because my character's properly like, I know we should make sure the ship doesn't get like shot up, I know I don't want to go too far from the ship, I don't want to leave the ship. So that'd be like a cool sort of like extra explanation for that, even though my character herself's not aware of it. And once it does become sort of obvious that I'm an artificial life form, and so when that needs to be studied, that will bring Matthew's character in, because he's got the expertise with that. My character doesn't. I'm just a pilot and an engineer. So that's what we're having this talk about now, and I thought it'd be interesting to record it, because I've often talked about the sort of player GM like negotiations to work stuff like this out. So I thought it'd be cool to record this for the podcast, as me and Johannes are sort of talking it through, and we might get to the end and be like, oh no, it's not suitable for the game, and we might not use it. No harm, no foul if we don't, but I just thought the process we're going through now might be interested for some people.
So I think like to start with is, well, you sort of mentioned that just now, but like, what would you like for this thing to be? Would you like it to be the sort of thing like, oh, you're one of the final five, like you're like a surprise, like organic slash actually like artificial person that's like a separate thing, and you just have a kinship? Would you like to like the reveal to be like, oh, there's actually metal underneath?
Well, yeah, I was sort of thinking, as I was saying to you at the end of last session, sort of like in the sort of Terminator style, where it's like an artificial life form with like a thin covering of like meat and blood, effectively. So like if I get like a minor cut, yeah, a bit of blood will come out, it looks fine. But obviously I've not actually been seriously injured in the game yet. So I was thinking, obviously, when I do get seriously injured, that would be when it had become apparent that like I'm an artificial life form. And obviously Matthew's character would be the person who would be trying to heal me and be like, oh, okay.
This doesn't work.
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of like how mechanical my character is, I'm open to input. Like I say, my main purpose was to do something a bit interesting. I'm not bothered about having like massive bonuses to stuff for the ship, because like I've got big bonuses to piloting anyway. That's covered. Like I say, my main aim was just to like bring Matthew's character into a bit more and potentially open up exploring this side of the game, which obviously his character, by virtue of his nature, is quite sort of set in, but like the rest of us haven't really touched with a barge pole yet, because we've like had no reason to.
Yeah, and the game so far has been about different stuff, right? It's been about the adventures of a bunch of people who really need to make some credits to continue to be able to live free, basically. So
I also thought it'd be quite an interesting dynamic. So we've obviously got Tao, who is like knows he's artificial, but he's to fit in socially, he's sort of masquerading as a biological life form, and he's trying to learn more about that. Whereas my character would be almost at the opposite end of that scale, where because I'm not aware I'm artificial, I think I am biological, so I act like a biological life form, but So he'd be trying to find out more about that, and I'd be trying to find out more about being an artificial life form, and hopefully like meet somewhere in the middle. And I'll be able to sort of bring his character in a little bit more.
So I think the next thing to consider would be, like, what are we actually talking about when we talk about artificial, like the artificial body and or artificial intelligence? Because it could be either way. Like, it could be that your character has like an original organic mind in like a Terminator body, or it could be that you are some form of artificial intelligence, whether that's a virtual intelligence or an actual AI, which there is a distinction between those two.
I was thinking it might be cool, like, because obviously my character does have like, I mean, we've not really got into it massively, but my character like does have a back history. I was thinking it might be interesting if basically my character was like the artificial version of my character who's currently on the ship was like modelled on like an original person who was maybe on the ship and perhaps died or like left or something like that. I mean, perhaps I don't even know what happened to the original version of me, so that could be like something you could either use or not as you see fit. But after this person died, left the ship, whatever, the AI who's sort of like using the ship as a node to sort of like gather more information about what's going on in the universe from relative safety of wherever it actually is like, oh, it's obviously more easy to interact with like biological life forms if they think you're a biological life form as well. So it sort of like created this artificial version, modelled it entirely after this person who it had all this time to observe and get to know, and someone who'd interacted closely with the computer systems, and it sort of like built like a copy of her. And was like, oh yeah, then I'll just bring this in. Oh, it's the same person, never left the ship, never died, whatever, absolutely fine. Got sort of ready-made relationships, doesn't have to like deal with the whole like, oh, I'm an artificial life form, what's going on, because the person thinks they're like biological, but the AI can still sort of use the experiences my character's having to like learn more about the universe and like interacting with people.
So would your character's cognition be a separate entity, or would it be like an extension or a sliver of this greater, like a true AI?
Yeah, I imagine it'd be sort of like a little sliver. I mean, the way I've been thinking about it at the minute is, you know, like if you have like Dropbox on your computer, you have like the sort of like the app version installed on your desktop, and like most of it's like in the cloud. Then when you like go online, it sort of like syncs the information up. So like presumably when my character's like sleeping aboard the ship, I'm effectively like the actual AI is like uploading the information and like relaying it to find based on like all the stuff I've done during the day, so it can like analyze those experiences and whatever. And obviously if it needs me to like do anything, it can then sort of like download those instructions into me while I'm resting, and I'll wake up next day going like, oh yeah, so when we go and like investigate that like planet that we were like looking at last time, and I'll just think it's like my own idea sort of thing.
Yeah. So the ship then would be the dock to your iPhone, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
In a sense. Yeah. So the ship is not intelligent. It's you who's intelligent, and the ship is this apparatus that works in and around you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I imagine that like whatever the intelligence the ship may have once had is now sort of in my character, but obviously because the intelligence was once part of the ship, that helps explain like why I'm able to like do what I can do with the computer systems, and things like the ridiculous like spike travel speed and like slinging around stars that we've been doing all makes a lot more sense, where you think, well, yeah, if you're like effectively part of the computer system, using it to do stuff like that becomes less miraculous, because it's you like using another part of yourself to do what you want to do, even though my character's just like, yeah, I'm the most amazing pilot in the world.
Okay. So the ship used to be like the sort of like extension of this true AI, wherever it may be.
Yeah.
It used to be the ship, but then the AI decided to make this copy, which is now your character, and then because there's all this lore and background for how actual AIs work in the setting. So the quantum core of a true AI would have been in the ship before, but then it made this like mechanical / organic armature, which is you now.
Yeah.
And the core was transferred to the armature, and then that's basically where we are. So as for the what's it called, the focus. So I think we, unless like you have some other ideas, we could very easily just pick one of the either virtual intelligence things like Matthew did, or like harvest some stuff from the true AI part of the book. The thing there is that the virtual intelligence part, that's an actual focus. So that's like a 1-to-1 exchange ratio, the exact same thing that Matthew did. That's easy, cut and dry. You get all the stuff that Matthew gets. Basically, like you are actually a robot. Turns out you're a Cylon. We know because we have a nuclear missile. The other option would be to go into the true AI stuff, which is a character class, as opposed to the focus that the virtual intelligence is.
Okay.
So the true AI thing is an actual class. There's a bunch of stuff there that's very similar to the way the virtual intelligence work, which is like you have your separate, like your mental stuff is you, and the physical stuff, the stats, whatever, the armature, that's the thing that you use to walk around. And also, like the main thing of the true AI class is it has these what's called routines, and it has processing. Basically, that's the exact same system that psychics have with their techniques and effort. So you have a number of processing points that you can use, and using those you can activate what's called routines. And these routines achieve a lot of different stuff. The way it works is if you have the true AI class, well, of course, one of the options is we scrap your class. We scrapped Catherine as is. I'm not sure if that's what we want to do, because this is sort of like sprinkles on top instead of like scratch everything.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, like I say, I mainly want to do it for flavour and to like bring Matthew's character in. I don't want to like massively overly complicate the game and sort of like turn the spotlight fully on my character, because that's not really what I'm after. So I think, like you say, I'd be looking for more like the sprinkles and the flavouring on the top, rather than like completely redoing the character.
Yeah. So one of the things we could do is like give you some processing based on something that we decide, whether that's like we pick because you can be a partial true AI and partial warrior if you want to, because and the thing is with that is like you're just not that interested in your nature as an artificial intelligence. Like you don't develop that part of yourself. Instead, you swordfight in space, which is cool.
Well, yeah, I can't argue with that.
Yeah. So we could like get you processing and then like a couple of routines to run, if that's something we want to do.
Well, like I say, I'm entirely willing to be like led by you on this, because obviously you know more about the AI and the background of that. Because obviously with it not being the focus of the game, I've not really read up on it. Yeah. So like I say, I'm not really interested in like entirely changing the sort of like vibe of the character, because I think the character like works well, and I'm sort of looking to like add a little bit of extra flavour to the character rather than sort of like entirely redoing it. But how you want to do that, I'm entirely willing to be like led by yourself in that regard.
Okay, let's see if we want to do something other than just the virtual intelligence thing, which is like we could just like do that instantly, no like thought required. We could just get you the focus that Matthew has and be done with it. But let's see if we want to do something else.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go through some of the core routines here, which is the set of routines that all true AIs develop without any expenditure. Like you just get them.
What page are we looking at? Because I can like follow you on my book.
288.
288. Okay. Again, I find out that this book is obviously not made to lie flat on a table.
Yep.
Okay, so core routines. Okay.
Core routines, yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff there of like differing natures. Obviously, it's all tied into the sort of fictional tropes that we have as a culture about how artificial intelligence works. A lot of it has to do with you're really efficient. You are really efficient with stuff. Starting from the first bit where the first routine is query data, which is if you have access to any amount of data, like if you have access to a database, you can just ask me anything and you will have like comprehensive understanding of everything instantly in that database.
Okay.
So like if you had like we have this interstellar corporation in our game, so if you actually had access to like their mainframes, you could just ask me anything and you would know if it's on the servers, if it's not like behind security firewalls or whatever.
Okay.
And because it like you have unlimited time to get that information out, so you just get it.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have split focus, which is like you are extremely good at doing stuff by yourself. So this would be like if we have a ship. Basically, if you had this, you wouldn't need anyone else to run the ship. Like you could do it all by yourself without like needing drugs to stay awake or whatever.
Okay.
Like it says there, what does it say? So when you get it, you are equal to 3 people as far as like operational purposes go.
Okay.
And then it triples with every level, and then you can put more processing in to get like multiples of that, which is insane. Basically, like if you had a bunch of this, invested some processing in it, you could run a factory by yourself.
Okay, so if potentially, sort of like theoretically at this stage, we're talking about having access to these core routines, is that something that's going to involve like a character class change? Because I believe they're only like for the AI classes.
Yeah, that's what I was going after when I asked, like, would you want to like scrap the thing and then like do something like that? But since that's not what we're going for,
well, I was going to say, I mean, if we were going to go that way, I'd probably go sort of partial true AI, partial expert to sort of like keep that sort of expert vibe going.
Yep.
But like you say, whether we want to do that or not.
Yeah, that's very much up to you. I would be up for it. We don't really need to do a whole lot for like the conversion part of you as a true expert now. I say true expert, full expert now, and then in the future you would be a partial expert. I don't think there's a lot that we need to do there.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I'm looking here at the partial true AI, and it says your access to routines is slow. At first level, they don't use any routines at all, but when they reach second level, they gain access to first level routines, because they're only like a partial AI.
Yeah.
So I think if we were going to go that way, the thing we'd have to decide is, am I going to sort of have my current number of levels as like expert and then start adding the partial AI on top? Am I going to like retrofit some of my existing levels? What do you think is the best way of approaching that?
The way this is going to work is we're going to check how many skill points an actual expert gets as opposed to a partial expert, because I cannot remember.
No, I can't either.
Oh yeah, the thing there is. Here we go. Partial expert. You get the free non-combat focus, which is cool. Like we don't need to change that. One extra skill point every time you get a level, and I think that's the same. Right. So basically, John, this is going to be very easy if we want to like scale it back from a full expert.
Okay, well, if we're interested in doing that and you're up for that, let me just bring up Roll20 so I can have my character sheet up and we'll sort of go through that, shall we? And
yep.
Obviously, we can make sure like we're both happy with it while we're both here.
Yep. I mean, this is the next easiest option. Like after just saying like, yeah, you're a virtual intelligence, you get the thing that Matthew has. This is the next easiest because the experts are so similar that we don't need to go back and like pull out a whole bunch of guts.
Yeah. Again, my only slight sort of, I suppose, trepidation would be the word. Is like I say, I because obviously the sort of the artificial life form thing is very much like Matthew's shtick at the moment. I don't just want to come in and suddenly be like, boom, I'm the artificial life form. Less of you, Doctor. I want to like, try and bring him into the game a bit.
Yep.
So if it's going to be sort of like easier and like it's not going to like, I don't want to steal the spotlight from his character. If it's going to be easier and not do that to take like the virtual stuff like he's done, I'll quite happily do that.
I'll tell you what, we don't need to make the call right now because all of this is very easy to like scale back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to get any of this until like the next time we get a focus anyway. So
yeah. But just like going forward, this is actually very easy for us to like pick a spot anywhere on the scale from Catherine as she is now to Catherine as a partial expert and partial true AI, with everything on the scale, like from the virtual intelligence focus thing to you having some routines. And I think we could just, depending on like which do you want, do you want to have the virtual intelligence focus, which gives you the sort of like mechanical nature that Matthew's character has, and let's pull up.
I say, what page is the virtual intelligence focus on?
I think it's in the bestiary with some.
Let me see if it's in the index. Virtual intelligence 197.
197. Yeah, in the bestiary. So it gives you. You would be an android, I think, because you're indistinguishable from human, unless like someone really digs in. So it's on 199, top right.
Yeah, android. Yeah.
So it's a level 1 focus. You can't get to level 2 on that. So you get a free skill, and then everything a VI robot gets, which is.
There we go. Special VI rules on the same page.
Oh yeah, on just to the left.
So you have the same attributes, hit points, abilities, and character classes as humans do. Can't be a psychic, right? Nor take the partial psychic class. Yeah, created in the same way as other human PCs. Start at the first level. Need neither sleep, eat, nor drink. Require 1 type B cell per week of operation away from readily available current, which again not a problem so far because I've not really been off the ship enough to be like away from regular current.
Yeah, and it's covered by the ship as like the crew, like buying the supplies that you do.
Also, I quite like the idea where obviously my character, I'm walking around with like a load of like B cell batteries, which originally I was like, I'll buy these in case we need any like emergency provisions for Tau. But I quite like the idea that maybe it's like a subconscious thing. We like, you know, like getting some of you. Yeah, exactly. Also,
it's good that we're actually reading through this because it says the next line, they are immune to vacuum, as we knew, but they suffer degradation from radiation, which we did not realize from the time that we were on that radiated ship. So that's cool. But yeah, basically that like your nature as a like a robotic entity would be that, and you can be reprogrammed. You need spare parts to to get healed. Like actual medicine doesn't work on you.
Yeah. I quite like the idea of going for the VI stuff. That seems like a nice sort of like easy way to do it without getting like too ridiculous and like delving into like all the like extra stuff, which I'm sure is great when it's a game that's like focused on that, but obviously like that's not a major focus of our game, so I don't want to try and like drag the focus away to something entirely new.
Yep. It can be though, like we very much for everyone's enlightenment, our game of Start With a Number is very much the game out of the book. So it's a crew with a ship. They're in a sector of space, and they're trying to make their way and have an exciting time doing it. So that's what we've been doing, Adventures in Space.
And it's been fairly exciting so far.
Yeah, we've had a good old-fashioned train heist in the desert, which is obviously where you do it. So that doesn't need to be the entire game, and I think it's gonna start like the focus of the game is gonna start shifting either way the longer we play, because the characters will become invested in different parts of the setting. Like now we've been very focused on the fact that there's this planet where there's like this civil unrest going. And
well, that's it. I mean, we've already started to build up the fact that like we've helped out sort of the rebels, for want of a better term, and we're all sort of like quite keen on sticking it to the Combine, or like the evil sort of like megacorp, for anyone who's listening. And we're sort of trying to like buy up the land and all the resources and like take everything over like an evil corporation should do. And we've sort of, obviously we're doing like our odd jobs and various bits and pieces to like make ends meet and keep the ship flying, which is part of the focus of the game. But as Johannes is saying, as time's going on, we're starting to make contacts with like sort of regular NPCs. We're starting to get more invested in like the political situation that's going on, as well as like the background of stuff. So I think you're absolutely right. The game is going to shift as we do get more invested. But like I say, and I'm quite happy to, like I say, because I want to try and bring in a bit of like the artificial life form stuff to like bring Matthew's character into it a bit. But I want to try and make it like an extra bit of a thing rather than just being like, right, the game is now entirely about androids or whatever.
Yeah, it turns out this was Matrix.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we don't need to be like super careful about it, because like shit's gonna happen either way, and people are entirely within their rights. You and Matthew both here, entirely within your rights to bring in ingredients that you find interesting in the setting. So like Matthew very clearly, by picking virtual intelligence to start with, he's been a robot for the entire game. He is very clearly signaling that that's something he's interested in. So we can and probably will pursue that. It's usually, in my experience anyway, some part of a Start With a Number game always goes into how about them artificial intelligences though? That sounds not dangerous at all.
Well, yeah, I mean obviously like AIs and like androids and that, they're like a sort of standard sci-fi trope. Yeah. But like I say, I think it'd be nice. Obviously, it is going to come out when my character does get injured, which is going to happen at some point. It's an Avatar game; it's bound to happen. But I think that'd be a nice entryway for like Matthew's character to then sort of like get in and like bring a bit more of that element that obviously I like, because that's why I'm going to choose this. But he obviously likes as well. Whereas at the moment, he's not really getting, just because of how things have been and the missions we're doing, he's not really getting an opportunity to bring that in. Because obviously he's playing his character really well, and he's sort of like, he does the odd like quirky bits where he like misunderstands like biological life forms and stuff like that, and that's really cool. But he's not really had an opportunity to sort of like leave the door open a little bit more and sort of get that a bit more into the game, which, like I say, he's obviously interested in it, because he wouldn't be playing a virtual intelligence otherwise.
Yep.
So hopefully this will give him an opportunity to sort of like bring that to the fore a bit more.
Mm-hmm. So, you want to go with the virtual intelligence focus, the Android focus?
Yeah, I think that seems the most like reasonable at the minute.
Mm-hmm. I've been thinking about some stuff for the next session, and related to that, would you find it either interesting or useful or fun, just plain out fun, to actually have, because you're an armature for an actual AI, which Matthew's character is not.
Yeah.
He has a very deep and complex, virtually like indistinguishable from a human cognition. Like you can't, like there is no void camp test to like figure Matthew out. Matthew has to screw it up himself, which he is very capable of doing, as we know from the Sabbat game that we played. He can screw his characters up by himself. Like he doesn't need any help on that. But he is not, like, definitely not a true virtual intelligence. He is, albeit a very complex matrix, but he is still just a personality matrix.
Yeah.
And your characters, like the fictional stuff here, is you are an armature for an actual artificial intelligence, which is a whole different thing. In the setting, the standard setting details that we are using here, actually, like true artificial intelligence can be psychics as well, because their cognition is as real as anyone else's. So it's quite a different thing. So would you find it either like a burden, or would you find it fun to have like one routine on top of your Android shit?
I would be quite happy with that. Like I say, the only reason I don't want to go for like the full sort of like VI stuff is, like I say, I don't want to suddenly like sort of like stick my big nose into like
he's
Matthew's part of the game and just be like, oh, that's you out. I'm the Android on this ship now. Yeah. Because like I say, I do want to use it to like bring him in, but yeah, I'm certainly amenable to like potentially, I don't know, maybe after I've taken the VI stuff, perhaps if I get when I get like another Foci, maybe like using that to, like taking a unique thing again to like gain access to some of the routines as just like an extra thing.
Yeah, or like that's very much like these are kind of spells really for both the psychic, like the psychic's techniques, and the true AI's routines. They're kind of like spells. So they're like you have the lists, right?
Yeah.
And that's all fine and good, but it does say with the routines as well as the techniques that like these aren't the whole thing. This is just the sort of norms left from
like
before.
A sample.
Yeah, like the basic template, and you can go beyond this. Either like you figure it out on your own, or more than likely you find either a mentor or some old technology for that sort of thing. So if we have adventures and like maybe you stumble upon like a broken part of an actual AI from way back, and you like harvest that thing, like you could actually, because we know that like fictionally you are tied into an actual AI, you could like, oh well, this information looks interesting, and then you black out, and 8 hours later you wake up and you're like, oh shit. Oh shit, that just happened. I now know kung fu.
Well, one thing I do think it'd be quite cool, and it's not going to advantage me in any way. In fact, the reverse is obviously my sort of like life force, if you want to call it that or whatever, is like tied into the ship, because that's like my command node, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be quite cool, like, if we ever did get to a point where like the ship's like entirely powered down, like the engine's like gone or whatever, if that effectively like powered down my character as well. Because obviously then it'd be an interesting dilemma for their characters, because I'm like the pilot at the moment.
Yeah, that would really suck for the current like setup if both the ship and you are offline.
That's it exactly. And then I think it'd be quite an interesting dilemma, because then they're like, all right, assuming by that point when that did happen, they knew that I was like an AI, they'd then have to like try and like sort of jump start me effectively to like get me working enough to like pilot the ship or like repair it. So obviously at the minute we've taken superficial damage and it's like, oh, a bit of the hull's gone or whatever, but there's been no point where it's like, oh, so many systems are down, or like the power's down or whatever. So I think obviously like while the power's up, I'm obviously like, yeah, I should get the ship fixed because I'm the pilot, and obviously like subconsciously, and also I work because of the ship. But I think it'd be quite, like I said, like a cool like dilemma to, if we ever did like do like a miss spike or whatever, and it's like, oh, the engine's blown out. If they're like, oh, sorry, we'll just get the pilot to like help us out, and the pilot's just like,
yeah, you're just sleeping. When they get to the cockpit, you're like, ah. Yeah.
So I think that'd just be like a cool like extra bit of flavour on like which I'd be quite happy to like role play even on before I'd got the focus. Just because I think it's like a cool extra little thing. It doesn't really give me an advantage, in fact, quite the reverse. But I think it's just like a cool extra thing as like a little lead into when I do take that focus.
Yeah, and like there's all sorts of. I'm big on what's called fictional positioning. So the sort of leveraging of fictionally established facts, which is like you're somehow on like a quantum level. Your body is tied to the generator, essentially like the spike engine of the ship. So like there's all sorts of stuff like we can do with that now like if we establish that this is how it is, we can do a bunch of stuff with that. Like you said, like if there's if the engine goes, we know that something's going to happen to you.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things, as you know, that I'm quite a big fan of with like OSR games like Stars Without Number is because the rules are quite sort of almost vague in certain points, but they're sort of more general, and you're supposed to sort of like play with them and reskin them as you want. I quite like the idea of having like having like the Android focus, like the VI focus, but then they say like skinning it so it's like slightly different to Matthews, so there's like still a bit of difference between the characters, but nothing that's like a massive rules thing, so it's not going to like really complicate the sessions. Cause I'm really enjoying the fact at the minute in your game that the games are quite fast flowing. There's no bits where we're sort of slowing down and we're like, oh right, okay, so we've got so many like action points we can use on the ship, we've got so many power points we can use, how do we allocate this to make sure we can get to here and do this, and we've got to like agonize over the cargo manifest. There's like elements of trading and there's stuff like that, but it's all sort of like in the background, and the main thing is that we can sort of represent that in a way that doesn't detract from like the exciting bits and the adventures, which is what we're all enjoying.
Yeah, and I imagine that thing is probably going to shift a bit as well as we like invest as players into different parts of the setting, because so far like we're sort of in the beginning. We've had 5 sessions now, but this is the beginning stages of the 12-part first season of a show, where they like you get all the character intros, like they do some like quote unquote like regular stuff, like they're working basically, and then shit happens and it gets real, and that's when you like shift from we're doing bounty hunt number 75, oh no, what's gonna happen,
that's it. I mean,
like, oh, there's like fucking zombies everywhere, like what's this about?
Well, that's it. And as we were saying, I mean, one of the things I'm enjoying is as we're getting more sort of like invested in with exploring the setting, and also with you using that cool Sectors Without Numbers website to like lay out the sector map and sort of like reveal it as we move around. It's nice because it's got a bit of that sort of hex crawl vibe to it, where we're discovering and uncovering the setting as we're going, but we occasionally like keep going back to like familiar places, so we're starting to sort of like recognise the places, and you're like, oh yeah, we're going to this place, that's not like where our guns, we best keep them on the ship. We're going to this other place, that's a wretched hive of scum and villainy, we'll send Dave out to do some pit fighting. Yeah,
and we know that on this planet there's on the orbit of this planet there's this space station with this this weird, weird ass noble,
horrendous human being.
Yeah, this sorry excuse for a human being.
It's just like, yes, kill him for me, and cut off his head and shit down his neck.
If you would.
I find him, never mind the combine. I find him the scariest thing in the setting.
Yeah.
Just the way he's like coolly sat there and he's like, I will give you extra credits if you cut off his head and shit down his neck. And I'm like,
yeah, it's like the amount of psychosis that guy has is it's different from like the sort of cold and faceless, like, yeah, like we're taking your shit, like what are you going to do about it that the Combine has going on?
well that's, I mean, obviously like the Combine are like this massive threat and they've got all these resources and everything. They're like a mega corporation, but like you say, they are like a faceless mega corporation. So when we see the Combine in action, it's like they're sort of jackbooted like armored soldiers coming out and like oppressing the common man. But it is quite faceless because obviously those people are just like doing their job as far as they're concerned. Whereas when you're like meeting this noble guy, you're like, oh no, he is just like an evil bastard, like through and through.
Something is like wrong with him. Like he's just bad.
Yeah, man.
Bad news. Yeah, I think the thing that I picked up on when you were talking about like stuff we've been doing and how it's been going. I really want to try the like the space combat rules of this version of Star Wars Number, because they're entirely different from the previous version, where I thought it was admittedly like Star Wars Number First Edition is an old ass game. It's several years old.
Hey man, well, like I said to you today, I mean, I've just downloaded like the original edition of Traveller, so I've got nothing against old ass games.
Yeah, old ass space games. I mean, it's not ancient by any means, but it was one of the like earlier iterations of the Crawford OSR game.
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember picking up the original version and some of the supplements like years and years ago. So.
Yeah, so it wasn't like it had cool ideas, but I think that was definitely one of the very weak points of the first edition of the game. It was clunky, I thought. So this version has the a command point economy thing, where like every person on the ship is assigned a role as long as there are roles to assign. Like you can just be around, you can be a generic dude and still participate, but like you could be like I forget the departments, but there's like three or four. You could be like the piloting. Diego could be the guns station dude, and that sort of thing. And our captain Aurora could be the bridge, and then there's this whole thing where the bridge decides like which order like different departments act in, and you like have this distribution of and generation of command points. So if you were in the engine room, you and like Aurora goes like in true like Star Trek fashion, they go like, "Give me more power," and you're back there with your hydro spanner. We're mixing franchises here, and like you're cranking out more power so that next Diego can go, well, I have all these command points, I'm gonna open up on this some bitch.
Yeah, so I presume you generate like command points like every like turn, for want of a better word, like and then you apportion them out to whatever actions you want to do. Yeah,
and I think it gives you like one per person or something. I forget the exact rules, but like you get this like every turn essentially, like you get the standard amount, and then some of the actions generate more. So like in the engine room, like you can just be cranking out more power to other people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, obviously we've not really got into any like big sort of like full balls to the wall like space fights yet, but it's a sci-fi game. It is going to happen at some point, so I think that'd be pretty cool to like give those rules a run out and see how they work.
Yeah, because it's much more. It's sort of like this mini game, like a mini board game inside the RPG, which is kind of cool, as opposed to the previous edition where it was like a guessing game, like actually like just like a shell game of like, oh, is your ship in phase 5? And then you go, no, I am in phase 4. Damn it, can't shoot. And then
Right.
it was yeah. It was not elegant. So, yeah, looking forward to trying that because I think it might be fairly entertaining. Because then you get to like role play the whole like Star Trek bit out when like they have the crisis on, and you're like, "Oh, Captain, what should we do?"
That's it. It's like in the sort of stars of that number system, for anyone who doesn't know, when your ship gets damaged, as far as I understand it, you sort of obviously you deduct your armor, you work out the scale of the damage and how much is going to be taken off your hull. Or as I understand it, you can take like a complication which negates the damage, but something like funky happens on the ship. And that every time that's mentioned as a possibility, I can't help but like flashing back to like Star Trek when like that every time they get hit, like the consoles are like exploding, like sparks are flying everywhere.
That is exactly what happens.
So yeah, I love the idea of that, and obviously things like that are more likely to happen in a space combat. Because at the minute, we tend to take damage when we're like running away at the end of the mission, and like some son of a bitch always like pops up with a rocket launcher and is like, and like skins us for like a few like points off our hull, and we're like, oh, glad we didn't get hit by more of them. Bye.
Yeah, I was. I thought you guys were gonna die when you were in the asteroid belt and you rolled the worst possible result for like what do you find or what do you encounter, which is the actual like anti-ship, like built to destroy things like you, automated gun platform, which I rolled almost like max damage on the first shot, which almost killed you by itself.
Yeah, I've got to admit it was a bit squeaky bum time at that point.
And like, because you need to like try to avoid like it's abstract, but like you need to get away and also avoid getting shot. So it takes like 3 consecutive, like successful attempts. And I thought you guys were gonna be screwed because the difficulty is quite high, and the hits are massive on those things.
Well, that's, I mean, it's one of the things I find quite cool, but also sort of like a bit scary, which I know is the point. Like whenever something hits your ship, I mean, last time when we were like sort of leaving at the end after like hijacking the train, we had like the guy shoot like 2 rockets at us from like the flyer, and it was like the first rocket missed. If that had hit, that damage roll was like massive, and I was like, that could have done us.
Yep.
And then like we got a glancing hit off the second one, and that like knocked down virtually like half of our hull.
Yeah.
And we made it away, and I was like, oh, all it would have taken was like 1 more of them rockets, and we'd have had to start going like, right, well, we can't afford to lose the hull. We're going to have to start taking like the complications, just to like get away from this. So I think like a lot of OSR games, it's like depending on what happens in a combat and how it's set up. Obviously, it can just sort of like turn like that if you get a couple of like bad dice rolls, and can become like extremely lethal very quickly. And obviously, if your ship blows up and you're on board the ship, well, that's you done.
Yeah, it's going to be Matthew's character is just like drifting in space, or now you and Matthew, presuming you take the android thing, and that's it.
One thing I am interested in asking purely for like. For how I'm going to roleplay the character is obviously, I'm dead set on taking the Android VI thing for my next thing, but like, so let's say before I get to that point, I'm exposed to the vacuum. How do you want me to play that? Because obviously, technically, I've not actually got the foci until we get to the next level. So like in the next, obviously, I'll have it at the end of next adventure, presumably when we level up. But let's say I get flushed out into the vacuum of space. Before I've got that foci, am I going to be like, oh well, I've just like blown up or like died as a normal person would?
I think it would be most interesting if like you picking the focus is gonna like represent some sort of, well, I guess like that's gonna be up to you either way, whether picking the focus like represents the fact that Catherine realizes this.
Well, like I say, I'm quite happy to play it however you think it'll work best for the game. Like if you're like, oh yeah, you're going to be entirely biological up until you take this foci and you're entirely affected by everything that affects biologicals, I'm fine with that because that's how I've been playing it so far. But if you're also like, well, you've effectively got the sort of VI stuff, even if you don't realise it. I'm happy to play it that way. So like I said, I just want to know so I've got something to like base my role play on. Because obviously at the minute I'm going to be like, well, I've just seen so far, I'm going to be like, oh, vacuum, best believe I'm getting a suit on. Because like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm just a normal person. So I'm still going to be doing that. But if we've got like in a situation where I'm like, oh shit, my suit sprung a leak and I can't repair it or whatever, obviously I'm going to be like role play my character panicking, oh, I'm running out of air, I need to like patch my suit up or whatever. But if I don't manage to do that, am I just going to be like, oh, and thus I die?
I think it might be interesting. Tell me if it's not. But it might be interesting to, like, even after you pick the feat for Catherine, because she was specifically manufactured as a biological / mechanical armature in the way that's the Cylon infiltrators were. So that they don't realize Catherine doesn't know about this stuff. So I think it might be interesting to just maintain that idea, not the mechanics. You'll get the mechanics starting next session, regardless of what happens. But Catherine doesn't realize until fucking Tao starts rooting around in her insides, why do you have this in there? Or Catherine ends up getting flushed to space and just goes the whole normal death cycle. It's just oh, I don't have air, I'm gonna die. And then she dies, quote unquote, and then a minute after it's just why I like the idea that the biological experience of death would be programmed there, you need to go through this, and then you come out on the other side.
I mean that's pretty much what I was thinking. I mean, I was thinking again, to use the sort of flushed into a vacuum sort of scenario, I was thinking if I did get flushed into a vacuum, say I'd react as I'm dying, I'm doing all the normal stuff, but it'd actually be I'm doing the normal dying stuff, and then I shut down at the point where I would have died. So if I'm hauled back in and obviously examined, that would lead to Tao finding out. But as far as I was thinking, maybe my character, if they sort of managed to restart me, that'd be my character oh, I miraculously survived somehow. Oh, Tao, you're such an amazing doctor. Rather than oh yes, I survived because I'm an artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I quite like the idea because of you mentioning that there's this sort of element of this, either the AIs or whoever actually made Catherine, the idea that she's there to experience and witness the universe. I think because of the fact that it's only now that we're even talking about Catherine being non-human, I think a lot of that must have to do with the fact that she has a human perspective. So I think it might be interesting if there's some programming to shield her, at least to some point.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was sort of envisioning, like we said, the sort of overall AI is, say, trying to sort of understand all it from its perspective, these tiny sort of entities that are running around, and from its sort of perspective on high, as it were. A lot of what they do doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because to a logical computer system, a lot of what humans do is just bewildering, even if they're they've got artificial intelligence. So part of the idea about having Catherine effectively being a biological entity and behaving in exactly the same way, and why a thought patterns and everything's modelled on the original, is so that when these experiences are sort of beamed back to the AI, it's got this level of human perspective, so it can increase its own understanding for whatever its aims are. Obviously my character doesn't know.
Yeah, I think it would be quite interesting to have, regardless of what happens, until someone digs out your mechanical guts and goes Catherine, what the fuck? I think it might be interesting to have Catherine sort of be oblivious to the fact, even if there's those death scenarios where you're drifting out in space, I'm dead, and someone hauls you in and resuscitates you, oh, okay.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, like you say, it's almost like a sort of subconsciously programmed sort of self-preservation instinct, where obviously like the overall AI wants this human perspective, so my character's sort of subconsciously programmed to like react in all ways a biological entity would do, and also to sort of like subconsciously protect herself from realizing she's not biological. So I think that'd be pretty cool.
And also, like, when eventually the programming fails because someone like represents irrevocable like proof, like what is this? I think like because you were built for this stuff, like there's going to be like programming for that event, like, hello Catherine, welcome to the new you. It's like,
that'd be pretty funny.
Starts playing in your mind.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool.
Like, you have been unwittingly my pawn for several hundred years or whatever. Yeah,
I think that sounds pretty cool.
Alrighty then, and of course, there's nothing to say that Matthew won't at some point decide that, well, we know that quote unquote true AI exists. I am what's called a virtual AI. I am somehow lesser. Maybe I should pursue like ways forward, and that's obviously something you guys could like have a project on.
Well, that's it. I mean, I was thinking it might be nice if and when he like realizes that my character has a connection, albeit like a sort of faint, tenuous one, to like a true AI. That's a potential avenue for him to then like pursue that if he wants to, and sort of like go for that more in the game. So obviously, like, I won't really know anything about it, so I'll just be sort of like his unwitting doorway into that sort of element of the plot if he wants to go for it.
Yep.
Sweet.
Okay. So for the android, what you're gonna get aside from all the robot bits is a bonus skill related to your intended function. Which
I'd probably obviously my piloting's like fairly ridiculous already. I'd suggest like maybe add it onto like fix or something like that for like maintaining the ship. And
I was gonna say like fix, notice, or no.
Yeah, I'd probably say fix, because then it also gives me like a handy thing for like if Matthew's character gets damaged, I can potentially like help him out by like repairing him and stuff like that.
Yep. Righto.
Sweet.
I think we hashed that out.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much sorted. So that's been me and Johannes discussing potentially me taking a unique focus in his Stars Without Number game. And like I say, I thought it'd be interesting to record this and put this on the podcast, just so people can see this sort of GM player discussion. And I was saying to Johannes at the start, it's quite rare for me as someone who GMs a lot of games to be on the player side of that discussion rather than the GM side of it. But I talk about this sort of like discussion and this to and fro a lot, so I thought it'd be interesting for people to actually like hear that in action, as it were. So thanks very much for joining me and going through that, Johannes. One question: do you want me to like not put this on the podcast until like after it's revealed in game, or are you happy for me just to upload it and whatever?
I don't mind. I think Dennis listens to it, but I don't. Like, I don't care. I think that's up to you because it's your game.
That's fine. Well, I'll probably edit it then and like upload it like within the next day or two, because like I trust everyone who's playing like enough to role play it appropriately, even if they know stuff out of character. So
yeah,
that's fine. Right. Well, thank you very much. I think I shall stop the recording here. So that's it for this episode. If you have any questions or suggestions for things you'd like to see in the podcast in future, please either email them to reddicediaries@gmail.com or drop me a voicemail at Anchor. Until I see you next time, wherever you're playing, take care and enjoy yourselves.